Hello, it's July 3rd, 2011, and I'm going to make this Japan cast. This is about isolation and isolation in Japan. And even though I'm not particularly feeling isolation right now in my life, I think this is an important topic to cover because at times I actually do feel very isolated here. And my view is that there's two kinds of isolation that you'll feel in Japan. One is the physical isolation. You know, Japan is an island. We're not connected to any other country. You have to take an airplane or a boat to get off the island to go to another country. So we are physically isolated from the rest of the world. And I really notice this. I feel that in two different ways. One is, even though Japan is a big island, like for example, if you fly from the Kansai region, which is Osaka, Kobe, Kyoto, if you fly to Hokkaido, it takes about 2 hours to fly there, and technically Hokkaido is a separate island. But Japan anyway is a very large island, but there's not a lot of land here. Like for example in Kobe, all the infrastructure, houses, everything is built along the seashore, about a 2-mile radius between the ocean and the mountains, so everything's really crowded. And in that sense, I feel that I'm on an island because everything is so crowded together. There's like a lack of space. In my home country, America, you can go out in the countryside and drive, and you just see just these huge expanses of land, farms, agricultural areas, desert. It's just amazing. Nowadays, when I go back to America and I see that kind of scenery, it just amazes me, and I feel so overwhelmed. I've been living in Japan for almost 12 years now. So I'm not used to being in these big open spaces. So that's one way that I know that I live on an island, is because everything's so crowded here. And I really feel that isolation. For example, if I have a problem back home, recently I had a really close relative, my aunt, passed away, and it sucks not being able to just go and, like to go to her funeral, or to just, be with my family at that time. It's not easy to get back home. And I think, like, out of all the, foreign countries, America, Europe, Australia, I think America is the cheapest place to get to. But still, a ticket might cost anywhere between $500 and $1,500. So it's not like you can just get up and go so easily. So we have that physical sense of isolation, and then you also feel isolation as a foreigner living here in Japan, from the way people treat you. They treat you like an outsider, and even though I've lived here for 10 years and I've been able to kind of integrate and adapt into Japanese society, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much I act like a Japanese person or how well I speak Japanese. As soon as they see that white face and this, big gaijin body — gaijin is the word for foreigner, and it's a little bit of a derogatory term, but as soon as they see, my appearance, they automatically make a judgment that I'm different, and they have to treat me differently, and they have to react to me differently. And it's stressful sometimes, because sometimes you just want to go out and you want to be yourself. You don't want to draw any attention to yourself. So at times like that, you can really feel isolation. There's isolation from the language. There's a language barrier. I've lived here for 12 years, and at one point I really studied Japanese really, really hard. I put my heart and soul into it. I don't study so much these days. I kind of just get by with the language skills that I have. But even though I have been living here for 12 years and can speak pretty fluently, There's still situations where I feel isolated because I cannot communicate something the exact way I want to. Or sometimes if I talk about really complicated things, like if I was trying to express some really deep or complicated feelings or emotions that I have to somebody in Japanese, I can get stuck. And or like when I get angry sometimes, when I get angry at Japanese people or I want to assert my will, sometimes I just have a lack of knowledge in that area. Like I don't know how to say it in Japanese, or I can say it but it's not the natural way, and then I feel like I have to hold back because I don't want to make a fool out of myself. So the language also creates a feeling of isolation. It's the language and the way that the people treat you. So we get it from both ends. You feel isolated because you're on this island that you can't really easily escape from. And then, if you have issues back home, you have to go see a family member, or, if you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend who lives overseas, it's really tough, because you feel very far away and you feel isolated on this island. So there's that, and then there's the isolation that you feel from within the island. Like I said, there's the language barrier, there's the way that Japanese people treat foreigners. So there's all these kinds of things you have to deal with that you probably never even thought about if you were thinking about coming to Japan. But that's a little bit about the situation and my feelings and how I view isolation. And then there's another factor here that I forgot to mention, and that's how you deal with isolation and how you deal with being alone. Are you the kind of person that gets sucked into it like a vacuum, and your emotions kind of spiral down and down and down the more lonely and isolated you feel? Or are you able to rise up from it and go out and make friends and just do things that make you feel positive and motivated? And I would say that for me personally, I'm a little bit of both. Sometimes I really get down in my isolation, my feeling of isolation and loneliness, and I'm like, man, this is too much. I'm sick of feeling like this. I'm sick of being isolated, and I just get into this spiral, downward spiral, and in that situation I'll just stay in my room and I'll watch TV or watch a movie or something. But really, the best thing for me to do in that situation, I have found out, is that even if I'm tired, even if I don't feel like going out and showing my face to the world, once I get out there and I start talking to people and meeting my friends or whatever, I start to feel better generally. And it's not hard to make friends here. I mean, you can go out and you can join a club or something. If you like tennis, you like some sport, whatever, you can make lots of friends that way. And people are generally open and friendly here in the Kansai area. Again, Kansai is the Kobe, Osaka, Kyoto region, and people are generally really friendly here. So there's these two factors that I mentioned about isolation. There's the physical isolation and the isolation you have within the country, and then there's also the factor about how you deal with it. So if you think about all those things, that's kind of what the situation is like here in Japan regarding isolation.